Hello, everyone, and welcome to an Uncle Bobbie's virtual author event. I'm Avisa, and I'm really excited to be presenting this awesome event for our beloved attendees. And this one is really special, and it's sure to be fun for the whole family, so I hope you brought your bigs and your littles along for the ride. Today, we are celebrating the book Hello Star, and this long-awaited release of which is next week on Tuesday. You can order your book online by clicking the green button below the screen to pre-order Hello Star. That will take you to Uncle Bobbie's online bookshop. Or after Tuesday, you can come into the store and get a copy yourself if you find yourself in Philadelphia, in the Germantown area. So I'm really excited to bring on our authors and illustrators. But first, just some housekeeping rules. After the discussion and presentation, we will be having some time for audience questions. So over the course of the presentation and conversation, please feel free to submit your questions by clicking the Ask a Question module at the bottom of your screen. We will be fielding those after the discussion. And now, I don't want to waste any more time. I'm just going to bring on our lovely panelists. We have author Stephanie Lucianovic. She's the author of The End of Something Wonderful, A Practical Guide to a Backyard Funeral, and the middle grade novel, The League of Picky Eaters. She's been a contributor to the New York Times Motherlode blog, The Washington Post, Entertainment Weekly, CNN's Eatocracy, The Atlantic, Wire, and more. Stephanie lives in the Bay Area, and she invites you to visit her at stephanielucianovic.com or on Instagram and Twitter at GrubReport. Vashti Harrison is the #1 New York Times bestselling creator of Little Leaders, Little Dreamers, and Little Legends, and the illustrator of Lupita Nyong'o's Sulwe and Matthew Cherry's Hair Love, among others. All of these are Uncle Bobbie's favorites. She earned her BA in Studio Art and Media Studies from the University of Virginia and her MFA in Film and Video from Cal Arts, where she rekindled a love of drawing and painting. Vashti lives in Brooklyn, New York, and invites you to visit her at vashtiharrison.com or on Instagram and Twitter at Vashti Harrison. Please give a warm welcome to both of them for me. Hello. Let's get you a little
Hi,
bit.
everyone.
Hi.
And here we are. Oh, let me. Technical difficulties. Okay. Hi, Stephanie, and hi, Vashti.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Welcome. Thanks for being here. I'm going to hop off and let you do your thing.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Okay.
So while Vashti she's going to help out by doing screen share and do the slideshow for my presentation first. So while she gets that ready, I want to thank everyone for being here. Especially thank you, Uncle Bobbie's and the Little Brown team, who have worked so hard to reschedule this event throughout the ongoing supply chain challenges. All right. So who I am, or who am I? I am the mother of 2 boys, Arthur and Henry, who are now in 3rd and 7th grade, and 2 cats, Bean and Needles. Oh, well, Bean and Needles, maybe a dog. There they are. I'm married to a math professor. And I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But I've also lived in Michigan, England, and Boston. And now I live in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. But I'm here today because I am an author. I write books, including the book we're sharing with you today. Now, if you've had authors visit you at your school, or if you've been to other events at bookstores, I'll bet a lot of those authors told you that they always knew they wanted to grow up and write books. Maybe some of them have even said they knew they wanted to be an author when they were 8 years old. That's not me. I didn't know I wanted to be an author since I was very young. In the first place, the act of writing was actually pretty difficult for me when I was in school. I had a hard time physically writing my letters, so it wasn't really something I wanted to do outside of school assignments. So yeah, so being a writer was just not something I ever thought I grew up to be, but I did love telling stories. At the dinner table, I loved telling my parents about what happened at school that day. During checkups, I loved telling my dentist about all the crazy things my cats did. At sleepovers, I loved telling my friends made up scary stories about the house or the cabin or the woods we were in, or at one point, the middle school we were all going to. When I was in college at Michigan, I loved sending emails to my parents telling them stories about everything I was doing. Not just explaining, I woke up, I ate breakfast, I went to class, but actually finding funny and interesting things about my college life that I could spin into interesting stories for them. But I still didn't see myself becoming a writer. Mainly, I didn't think I was good enough to write anything anyone else would want to read. But I had always loved books, so I got a job working for a publishing company in Boston. Because while I didn't think I was good enough to write the books, I definitely wanted to be involved in how they got made. So during the time I was working in publishing and learning how books get made, I had the opportunity to do some writing outside of my regular job, and it was for a television website. It wasn't just about writing about TV, it was telling jokes about whatever it was I was watching, which was something I already did on my own all the time. So why not get paid for it? This was back in 2000, 21 years ago, when writing online was pretty new. I wrote for that website for a long time, almost 10 years. And during that time, I learned how to write. I know that might sound strange since I was already writing, but every new piece I wrote taught me something more about writing. And it made me a better writer because writing is a muscle that you make stronger by constant practice. Now, to be honest, I'd admit that not everything I wrote was great, but that didn't matter because with every piece, my writing got stronger and stronger. So I taught myself how to be a better writer, not by taking any formal classes in writing, but by writing and reading a lot. Even to this day, I'm still learning how to be a better writer every time I write something new. As I got better and more confident in myself, I took on more writing jobs. I had one job where I got to eat food, write about what I liked and didn't like. Once, I was even assigned to describe over 300 cheeses for Cowgirl Creamery in San Francisco, where I was also a cheesemonger. I wrote about vampires and manga and Star Trek and being a parent. And then about 7 years ago, I started writing books, including my first picture book, The End of Something Wonderful. And even though I'm now an author, I still mainly see myself as someone who loves stories. I love stories, whether I'm telling them, reading them, or looking for them around every corner, even when they come to me suddenly and unexpectedly when I wasn't looking for them at all. So this book today was one of those unexpected stories that came to me because of my oldest son, Henry. He's 12 now. But back when he was 6, he was interested in all things outer space. He read books about space and recited facts back to me about how long the storm on Jupiter has been raging and how the sparkling rings of Saturn are made of ice-covered rocks. And one night, he asked me if I knew that stars die. I said I didn't actually know that. Then he said, "Don't you think that's sad?" And that's when this story tapped me on the shoulder and asked me to notice it. Because honestly, I had never thought it was sad that stars died, but Henry did. And that made me sit there in our kitchen and wonder what Henry or any kid like him might do to take care of a dying star. And then I wrote that story. Now, if any of you out there are thinking, I still don't want to be an author when I grow up, it's totally fine. Because here's a secret, none of you, not even the grown-ups here today, have to make up your mind right now about what you want to be. You're also totally allowed to change your mind at any time. Some people do lots of different jobs throughout their life. I did. So maybe you won't be an author. On the other hand, maybe you will be. Because if you love stories and if you look for stories, and most importantly, if you pay attention when the stories come looking for you, maybe one day you'll decide to write those stories down. So that's the background on me. And now I'm thrilled to turn this over to Vashti so everyone can hear more about her and her work. Thanks for the slideshow, Vashti.
Thank you so much. Can you just confirm, can you see me? Because I can't see you guys. All I see is just beautiful art and photos of you and your boys.
I can see you down in the corner. And
all right, I'm just going to pretend that I can see you and not just this giant photo of myself. But thank you so much. That was like a really special and really lovely introduction into this book. So a little about me. My name is Vashti Harrison. A lot of people say Vashti. You're allowed to say it if that's how you want to say it, but it's Vashti. I'm an author and an illustrator and a filmmaker. And all that really just means is I like to tell stories. Sometimes I come up with ideas and think, wow, that would make a really great book, or wow, that would make a really great movie, or that would be a really beautiful photograph, or a drawing, or a necklace. I'm really just interested in being able to constantly be inspired by things and share those stories with other people. And I'm interested in being able to use different media to share those stories in the best way possible. But this is where I started. This is the OG me, very classic Vashti, giving you that look of, no, I don't want to take a photograph. I just want to sit here and color in my Red Lobster menu or whatever else I'm doing. But drawing has been my love since I was a kid. And I'm really lucky that I get to do that now. Here are a couple of examples of the work that I do. I'm often inspired by nature and the things around me, like my cat, and I think about my childhood a lot, and I try to remember what that little Vashti loved, was interested in, excited about, the places she wanted to go, the adventures she wanted to go on, and the stories that would have been really helpful back then. So I think about creating artwork and stories that would be meaningful for those kids. Here are a couple more examples. Clearly, I draw a lot of girls. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, they're probably my favorite thing to draw. Mostly girls going on adventures or looking up in the stars and hoping for something exciting. And to me, that's what I remember most about childhood. And it's what I try to kind of evoke and put into my work. Here are a couple examples of my drawings. If this is playing for you, you'll see it's going really, really fast. I don't draw this fast, but I do draw kind of messy. I kind of put the ideas down as quickly as possible, and then try to get in my light and shadow, because for me, that usually helps me tell the story. So I've got like a ballerina going, and I really want it to be this celebratory moment. Look how many times I'm drawing her legs, though. I do it over and over and over again because I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but I was really just trying to capture this moment of celebration, and I wanted to use the light to do that. Here's another example. This one's a little bit more of a silly example. I don't know if you can tell, but this is a photograph of an apple. This was from just one day. I was at work, working at my desk, and I took a snack break. I got an apple, I cut it in half, I ate the other half, and I left this one sitting on my desk. And as I looked at it a little bit later, I thought, oh my gosh, that kind of reminds me of something. So I snapped a photo of it with my iPad, and I started drawing on top. Maybe you'll be able to see what I saw. Okay, so if you can see that playing, it's Mike Wazowski from Monsters, Inc. That's my very silly example of how sometimes ideas can come from anywhere. You just have to be open to seeing that. You know, you might do the same thing when you're looking up at the clouds and you see a picture or an image. I kind of do this all the time. And that's my example of how, even as silly as this is, an idea can literally come from anywhere. You just have to be open to seeing them. And that's all storytelling is. Now, in this case, I used a character that people are more familiar with, but this is how you can create new characters all the time. Turn an apple into something, turn a cloud into something. It's really, really not that hard to be creative. You just have to like force yourself to try new things. And I'm really lucky that I get to do that drawing all the time now and tell stories and share them with young people. These are some of the books that I've written and illustrated: Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History, Little Dreamers, Visionary Women Around the World, and Little Legends, Exceptional Men in Black History. And these are all nonfiction books. They're filled with the stories of real life people. really inspirational stories that I'm excited to be able to share with young people, stories that I definitely would have benefited from hearing and learning about when I was much younger. And then in other cases, I illustrate books written by other people. So what happens is the author will write all of the words, they'll write a manuscript, and I'll get it. And it's my job to kind of translate it and extend that story and turn it into a whole new medium. And I often think about it a lot like movie making. So if we think of the manuscript like our script, and the writer is our screenwriter, and maybe our editor is the director, it's my job to kind of create everything that's on the screen. So I'm casting the characters, I'm designing their costumes, I'm designing their bedrooms and doing all the set design. And I'm also the cinematographer. So I'm choosing the angles at which we're going to be looking at everything and doing all the lighting. And it's really an incredible opportunity to be able to tell lots of different types of stories. Here are a couple more examples. You guys might be a little bit more familiar with these. Solway and Hair Love. And so what's really special about being able to illustrate books written by lots of different people is this kind of diversity of creativity. And I get to work with lots of really incredible people. But as much as I love drawing lots of things, I have to say I have a soft spot for stars and astronauts and kids going on adventures in outer space. So when I had the opportunity to read the manuscript for this book, Hello Star, I knew that it was going to be something special and that I would be able to bring a lot to it. So I'll talk a little bit more about the art of this book a little bit later, but for now, Stephanie's going to come in and give us a little reading.
Thank you, Vashti. So can you help me out by clicking through the book slideshow? Thank you.
Here.
Okay. Hello Star, written by me, words by me, and art and illustrations by Vashti Harrison. My computer might be a little bit slow, so I might pause a bit to let this resolve. So here are these amazing end papers that Vashti did. Love them. Get the book and look at them, look at all the little details. This is the half title page. All right, here we go. One winter night, a light shone in the dark sky, brighter than any star, brighter than any planet. Far, far away, a girl who was young and new and bright and strong was curious about the light. Sorry, this could be just my internet being slow here. It's a supernova, her mother explained. A very big star is dying. It will shine like that for a long time until it finally fades away. The girl felt her heart pinch at the idea of the star slowly losing its light all the way out there on its own. She bent her knees and jumped, even though she knew she couldn't reach something so far away. Before the girl crawled into bed that night, she looked out her window and whispered, "Hello, Star. I know you're scared, but you're not alone." At school, the girl usually let others do the talking. But now she had questions of her own. Her teacher pointed to a chart of the solar system and told her that our galaxy, the Milky Way, is thick with stars and that the closest one to Earth is the sun. But the girl wanted to know more. So she went to the library and carried home slipping stacks of books to read with her parents. Night after night, the girl brushed her teeth, put on her pajamas, and stood at her window to say, "Hello, Star. Don't worry. I know you're out there." When the girl got older, she could read books to herself. She discovered that stars have different colors, sizes, and temperatures, and that her star was a blue supergiant, the largest of all. She also read that blue supergiants don't usually flare brightly enough to be seen from Earth. That meant her star was special. The girl became a young woman who studied long into the inky nights, and she began to understand what might happen at the end of her star's life. It could become a neutron star made of material so heavy that a teaspoon of its shimmering, blazing star stuff would weigh as much as a mountain. Her star could become a black hole, pulling in light and mysteries at the same time. She longed to solve those mysteries, and she realized that reading, studying, and watching from afar weren't enough for her. "Hello, star," she whispered. "I'll find a way to you." She practiced flying and ate while floating in midair. She fixed machines and ran for miles. When the woman felt frustrated and tired, she looked up at her patient star, waiting so far out in space, and took a deep breath. She knew from her careful calculations and from telescopes as big as an entire room that her star was getting dimmer. They were running out of time. So one night, after working harder than ever, she said, "Hello, star, I'm coming." Now other people listened to the woman because she knew a great deal about stars and planets and moons in space. She told them about the icy rings of Saturn and about Pluto's frozen heart. She told them about the wild, spinning, red-eyed storm on Jupiter that has lasted hundreds of years. Every moment brought her closer to the long trip she would take, and the woman felt a spark of excitement and hope in her heart. She zoomed. Oh, I can't see it.
At last, she stepped aboard a ship.
Thank you. We're covering it up. I haven't memorized this yet. At last, she stepped aboard a ship. She zoomed through pale blue skies, zipped past plumped white pillows of clouds, and flew far beyond Earth's atmosphere. She traveled along an endless velvet night that stretched itself in all directions, and she didn't stop until she was hundreds of thousands of miles away from home. On her first day in space, the woman took a walk by the light of the Earth. In the cold, dark silence surrounded by 400 billion stars, she bent her knees and jumped. On the moon, she could reach higher than ever before. And then the woman, who was still the hopeful girl who had watched and studied and loved a distant tangle of light and fire for all these years, stretched out her hand to her patient friend. "Hello, star, I'm here." In the silent depths of space, the star sighed proudly. And as the tired blue giant finally faded to dark, it cracked into many more stars, all of them young and new and bright and strong. The end. And Vashti's wonderful end papers of that.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I guess now I'll go into a little bit of behind the scenes on the illustration of the book. It's such a poetic and meaningful story. It's always so weird to kind of transition to like, and now let me just talk about the art, but that's what we're gonna do. This book was really special in that I had the opportunity to spend a little extra time doing lots of different tests and samples in many different media. Every other book that I've illustrated has been completely digital. So I've done everything on the computer, either on my iPad and finished in Photoshop on my computer, which you can't see, but I'm going to be drawing on it in a few minutes. This book was special in that I had more time to kind of try out some different things. So I'm going to go through a couple of different samples that I drew. But one thing that usually happens when you start working on a book is you do a sample illustration of just one spread. You try to, isolate something, a page that might feel really representative of what the book might look like or feel like, and you do a couple of different tests. So here's some in pastel and some sketches I did on the iPad. Here's more pastel and gouache. And I chose this spread because I knew that it had the character at that really special age where she gets first introduced to the star, and that hopefulness is just so innocent and sweet, and it felt really magical. So I wanted to play with how to make something so grounded in science and technology feel kind of magical and fairy tale like. So I did a bunch of different sketches and tests for the character. These were done on the computer, on the iPad. And more trying to figure out which medium I might use. I have have a problem in that I buy too many art supplies, and I have lots and lots of supplies around, which is crazy because I spend most of the time drawing digitally. But I really wanted to try out doing it in pastel. I tried out pastel brushes on the computer. And I did a lot of research because as much as making books is about kind of imagining and creating new things, there were some very specific bits of science that needed to be included in the book, like what does a supernova look like, and how do I properly represent these galaxies and the moon while not feeling like I'm just copying it. So I did a lot of like gathering of images and testing. So you can see that I have a couple different tests here. Again, this is pastel, and this is some metallic watercolor on black paper. I did a lot. And then I did a bunch of tests on the iPad because, you know, I was really liking how I can get the way some of these brushes to move. But one thing that happens when you work digitally is you have the ability to zoom way in. And I wanted to be able to take a step back and not get so nitpicky about some of the tiny details. I wanted it to feel a little bit more impressionistic. But I really loved these tests. So I was thinking about ways that I could bring the two together, and just kept on going. So I think this is more pastel tests, pastel on toned paper. This is, I think, Photoshop with one special brush. And this is iPad with another special brush. I think this one's actually a video, so you can see how it, the process. Let me know if it's not playing for you or if it's a little slow.
It is playing.
Okay. So yeah, this is really just like, this is the process. You kind of just keep testing things out and trying different things, pushing colors around until it really starts to feel right. And nothing can, you know, I can't put a definition on feel right. It's really just about, you know, what you're hoping for and accomplishing that through the artwork. In the end, I think I finally figured it out with this test. And this was a test I did with colored pencil as my base, and I scanned it in and colored on top of it in Photoshop. So this is what the original sketch looks like. I just wanted a medium kind of even color tone, because I have a tendency of going a little bit too dark if I use like black or blue. And I didn't want anything too harsh. I wanted this book to feel really soft and not too contrasty. Again, to kind of evoke that sweet fairy tale vibe while not being a fairy tale. So I chose a medium color, and because I didn't have like a medium gray, I used a medium red because it was the pandemic and this was what I had. In the end, I did the whole book in this red colored pencil and scanned it in. So here's an example of that breakdown. So this is the sketch for the 16-17 is the spread. And there were a few things that I knew that I could add digitally, like the kind of glowy, sparkly stuff. And I just needed to get the texture and the tone down. So I scan that and I bring it into Photoshop and I start isolating the different elements, and I color on top of that to change the color. So it's sort of like you have an entire, you know, toolkit of all these different colors with one brush. And then I put the background in, and I start adding some of my details, like my my lighting and my local colors. And then I put the character in and some lighting to them. And then the final touches with the sparkly things and stars in the background. And so that's an example of how the book gets done, but it's always a process. So I'm going to go through a little bit of the drawing process. I'm going to stop sharing that screen, and I'm going to open up another screen for you guys, and I'm going to do a little drawing demo. And it might, you know, go a little bit long, so I'm happy to like answer questions while we're doing that. Or if Stephanie, if you have any questions while we're
doing. Oh, you know I do. You know I have lots of questions for you.
Okay, let's go.
Couple of things.
Share the screen.
I love that you use the term pushing colors around. Like that, just what a great way to describe drawing or illustrating. And I continue to be amazed that everything was done in the red tone first. Like that just, it's so cool. Like just, I can't even, that never would occur to me that that's how you can layer things to get the right tone.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit of like the movie magic of drawing digitally. And one thing I really like about the tools is that, you know, it is a bit democratizing in a way. Like art supplies are expensive. Like one of those colored pencils is like $4 or $5. If I had to have every single one, that's a lot of money. And I do have this tool that I can just photograph it, scan it, and put it in. Again, of course, my computer costs money, but it was the pandemic, and I was really nervous about going to the art supply store. So it was a bit of a workaround, but it totally worked just right for me. And what actually happened with just working in one single color is I just thought about the lights, the values, the lights and the darks, instead of getting too nitpicky about, is this the right blue? Is that the right blue? It allowed me to just like get all of the shading in and then deal with that stuff later. And separating that process made a big difference for my own creative, I guess, well-being. I think that, you know, sometimes people ask me like, is working digitally cheating? And I always ask like, cheating who? Like who where's the art judge that's going to tell me? Where's the art principal who's going to come tell me that I can't do it? It's a tool. Every single medium, digital, traditional, dry, wet media, they're tools for you to be able to tell a story. And so if you understand how you work and what's good for you, then like I encourage anyone to keep trying everything, any way that'll be helpful for your process.
You did mention, you've mentioned before, I think, that you used in Photoshop a custom brush to look like colored pencil. How do you I've seen other illustrators mention this and share their custom brushes. Is that something that you yourself customize, or Photoshop does, or it's like, how does that happen? How do you do that?
Basically, anyone can make a brush. It's pretty simple. But one thing that I do, because I did work in colored pencil on everything, there were some things that I needed to adjust and you know, fix in the computer. So what I did was scan in a whole page of colored pencil texture, and I isolated it and turned it into, well, it's way too zoomed in. It's basically me just isolating that texture and putting that texture into a brush that already existed, which was just a round brush. It's not perfect. It doesn't look exactly like colored pencil, but it helps to, you know, get some of those little fixes in.
So essentially too, then what you've done is it's so customized to your own pressure on the brush that you, on the colored pencil that you put on the paper before scanning it in. So it's very specific to the weight you put on.
Yeah, you can, in Photoshop, if anyone wants a full lesson on how to develop your own brushes in Photoshop, I'm happy to do that. But it's part of the settings. There are all these settings that you can do, like color pressure and jitter, and you can add all kinds of different things to the brushes in the settings. And you can also do the same for brushes that already exist. Like if you're not liking how something is flowing, you can change the flow and the opacity, and you can add a texture to a brush, so you can scan in your own texture. It's very customizable. I remember when I was in college, I had to like one of the first lessons in one of these like digital workshops was like everyone is going to choose a tool in Photoshop and teach a lesson on it. So I know how to do this because one of my classmates just did a little lesson on it. I never forgot because they explained it so clearly. So now I know how to make any kind of brush I want.
That's so cool.
So what I'm just doing is I already sketched in a character and I filled in my background, and I just am drawing a kind of a loose version of our protagonist. And the reason everything is so dark is because I want it to look like there's the star, like the star is like up here, like way out of our reach, and it's shining light that way. So what I'm going to do is on this layer, add in some lighting. So I'm just doing this with color, not with like extra settings or anything. So I'm just using this like light blue, and I'm adding it to all of the parts that might be hit by the light. So the way you can kind of learn how to do this is really just by practicing and doing studies. Often in art classes, they'll make you do a still life. So they'll like put some flowers and eggs and fruits on the table, and then they'll shine a light on it. And then you kind of just have to do your value studies. And that's the basic way of understanding how to do this. So I'm just imagining that each one of these curls is three-dimensional, and the one that's kind of closer to the light is going to be hitting. It's going to be bathed in the light, and the parts that are away from the light are not going to be. I don't know if that makes any sense, but we're just going to keep on going. And I'm going to keep coloring her in so that I can make it look really nice and special, because I want to show you one of those custom brushes. I've said this before. I love drawing kids in pajamas, because it seems like all of my favorite stories when I was a kid, something happened like magical in the night, and the kids get whisked away while they're wearing their pajamas. So think about like Wendy in Peter Pan,
yeah,
or I don't know, the Little Princess. Okay. She's kind of got little spooky eyes going, but that's okay.
It's the season.
Isn't it? Okay. So we're just going to put a little shadows, a few different. I always say, if you want to make something look like it's shining in light, you need dark. In order for something to look sparkly, you need it to be contrasty with the background. So I just put some shadow on her face. It's a little bit intense, but oh, it's because my opacity is so low. And so here's one of the brushes that I made. I had to draw stars a lot throughout this book, so I made a couple of different custom brushes. So I made, let me zoom in so you can see. So one of my stars might look like this, and I isolated it. So it's just a dot with kind of a glow around it. And I did that and duplicated it so I can make it kind of swirl around.
Wow.
So I could do a whole scene of stars in just a second, you know?
It's amazing.
And that one is like multicolored. This one is all single color, and that's part of like the settings, which we can talk more about when we go to our art workshop. And let me just clean up my shadows, and then I'm going to call this one done.
Oh, look at that. The glow is just
add
amazing.
a few more details, because I think our character needs some like some stars on their pajamas, because that's the best. I love me a pajama set.
Do you have a favorite one that you wear? I tend to go with.
I do. I do have one. It has all kinds of like zoo animals on it. And I will take credit for having started the pajama trend in my family. All right. That's it.
That's beautiful.
I always forget the comma. Boom. All right. I'm going to stop sharing and come back. Thank you guys so much for enduring that for
it's so beautiful. I just love watching the way all the removal and the adding, and then when you change or how you can erase just certain layers is, to me, like, because I don't that's not what I do. So I'm endlessly fascinated in learning more about that. So
I'm excited to take some questions from the audience.
Yeah.
Maybe someone back from Uncle Bobbie's will come in. Okay.
Yeah. Here I am. Yeah. Oh, that was such an awesome demo. Really cool to get a peek behind the curtain that way. We have one question right now. Sydney Tillman asks, both of Stephanie and Vashti, do you both have a favorite spread and a favorite line from Hello Star?
Vashti, you want to go first?
Well, my favorite piece of art that I made is the cover. I never like love the covers of the books that I make. There's always like a lot of work goes into a cover, and I'm really grateful that this one came out exactly how I hoped and people liked it. As far as a line, I'm not sure. I'll think about it. All
right, I can share my favorite spread because it's pretty easy. I didn't call it out when I was doing the reading because, quite honestly, I get to that spread and I get choked up and I don't want to start crying in the middle of my read. But my favorite spread, when I was sent the full art by our editor, and I at home put it up on our TV so the whole family could look at it together and page through. When we got to, I hope the glare from the window. When we got to this spread in particular, I did burst into tears. It was my favorite. It is my favorite. I have lots of spreads that I love, but this was the most, to me, kind of earth-shattering, heart-shattering. Nothing I could have imagined, when writing the book. That's my favorite spread, personally.
I will say upon this reading, a line that stood out to me, even though I've read it probably hundreds of times at this point, but just thinking about the star as her star being special, like that not every supernova shines that bright, or not every supergiant shines that bright, and that her star was special. It felt so sweet. Just really so sad that it's gonna die, or that it is dying. But that's what the whole book feels like to me. It's just, a really emotional but really earnest story.
I think my favorite, one of the favorite things that I wrote, the Jupiter and the Saturn line about Saturn, or Pluto's frozen heart, and the, icy rings of Saturn. But I also really like, or was proud of, I guess, making sure to keep, her teacher pointed to a chart of the solar system and told her that our galaxy, the Milky Way, is thick with stars. I think it's the thick with stars part that I like, that I was able to, for me at least in my head, capture when you are in an area where there's no light pollution and you can truly see that the Milky Way. It just is astonishing to me how very thick it is with stars. They're all just there and bunched up, and I just love it. I've actually talked about in other writing that, to me, the Milky Way looks like a scar in the sky that has been healed and knitted together with the stars, because that's just the way it looks sometimes in the night sky. So those are my favorite words and spread. And then Vashti said she loved the cover too, but the back cover was also something that she created as a separate piece of art that doesn't always happen in books. Sometimes there's just nothing. And if I can show the unders, or the undies that they call them, the art that Vashti did for the case cover. is amazing. And I think we saw some pictures there in her presentation, her reference pictures. So make sure to take a look at that. It's glorious. Yeah.
We have some more questions. Jordan Hammonsley asks, did you learn any fun space facts while working on the book?
Did I? Did both of us?
Either, both of you.
Did I? Well, in the author's note, so something fun that started at the beginning was that I asked my husband, who at one point wanted to be an astronaut himself, is it possible to see a supernova from Earth with the naked eye? Like, is this a real thing that I could write about? And he said there was an event in 1987 called Supernova 1987A that you could see with the naked eye in the Southern Hemisphere. So I was glad that I could sort of target that real event, even though there's no way that she could have stood on the moon and seen the star go dark, because that star would have gone dark, long time ago. We're seeing that light come to us later. So I liked that I could have a fact that I built the story around as well.
I don't know if I can think of any facts that I learned, but I know that I looked at like every single space uniform ever. And I have some favorites and I have some ones that I do not like. So now that I know, I have opinions on whose astronaut spacesuits I like the most.
So do you have an opinion on the Space Force uniforms that we've seen that are supposed to be apparently designed better for women, or at least thinking of women, but
no, I can't say that I've actually investigated the Space Force, but the SpaceX ones,
yeah,
not my fave, but
yeah. Well, I like what you created here. Like, I like
Thank you. I was going for something a little bit more retro.
Yeah. Oh, you got it. That's great.
I'm actually curious about the collaborative nature of this creation. How the two of you, how you, I guess, came together, and what the process of working together has been like. Can you speak a little bit on that?
Sure. I mean, I could say from my side of things, since I wrote the text and sent it to my editor at Little Brown, not every editor will ask you for input on illustrators. They may give you a list and say, what do you think? This is what we're thinking of. Because essentially, when they buy the book, it's their book. They do with it what they want. I don't really tell them what to do at all. But they're nice about asking for opinions. And I did tell Deirdre, is it possible that we could get Vashti Harrison, maybe, do you think, kind of, sort of? And she was like, oh, I like that idea. Let's see. She's busy, so we'll reach out and see. And sure enough, she was able to find time to do it and wanted to do it. So pretty much from there on, they keep the illustrator and the author separate. Like, we're not talking to each other during the process. Vashti doesn't send me stuff directly to say, what do you think? There's a reason why you have like an editor and an art director between you, because once I let go of the text, I let it go. And then Vashti brings her viewpoint to it, her story, because it's our story. It's not my story anymore. It was my story before it was published and sold to the editor. It's our story once we have an artist. It becomes the collaboration like that. But there's not back and forth. At least not for this particular book. Other people may work differently.
Yeah, I can say I've had a kind of a spectrum of experiences in working on different books because of like different contract types, but this one is a little bit more typical in that I work really closely with the art director, and Stephanie might work really closely with the editor, and then those two work really closely together. So there's not a lot of that back and forth, but if there are specific notes about, oh, there should be this thing in the background, or it's really important that I'm not saying this, but this other thing is happening, it's always important to get that extra list of things, because if it's going to service the story, I need to include it. But yeah, this one was a little bit more like the standard in that we don't actually talk that much, but the hope is that we're all, you know, simultaneously working to make this book something beyond us, because at the end of the day, the art's not for me, it's for those kid readers. And at the end of the day, you know, we can make it as like perfect and pretty as possible, but if they don't care, then we haven't done our job. So it's, I think I think people like don't, I think, get the collaborative nature of making books in that way, that it's a team effort to make it this special thing for the end user. I don't know, end user.
Yeah. And typically, you know, an editor and art director at a publishing company, they know what they have an idea for what they want the book to look like, which is why they might suggest certain illustrators, and they know how to best position it in the market for it to look like a certain kind of book. So that's we end up being led by that direction as well.
Yeah. The spot gloss. Yeah. Thanks to Dave Kaplan for this beauty.
That's something I want to call out when I give a book talk to kids, and I show them the end papers and the case cover and all the little secrets, the colophon secrets that you can find in books. I have to remember to call out that this is kind of a special treatment to have spot gloss, and that's the official name. I love that.
Awesome. Thank you. Now we have another question. Oh, do you have any favorite space themed stories or picture books?
Yes, I do. Red Rover by, oh boy, it's by, well, it's, the words are by Richard Ho. I have the book right here. Where is it? Catherine Roy is the illustrator of this one. This is about the Curiosity rover on Mars. It's a really tender, sweet story. I'm losing my cover here. That's one of my favorites.
I have like every Space and Star book. There are so many. I've wanted to work on writing my own slightly older book set in space, but I kind of have put it on the back burner for a while. It was mostly about kind of environmentalism, and as I've mentioned this before, that like I'm really grateful that folks are out here doing the work, that I don't have to like bear the burden all on my own. But I love looking at everyone else's work. One of my favorites is Armstrong. I'm forgetting the author, but it is like a retelling of the Apollo space mission as told through the eyes of a mouse who goes to space. And it's just beautifully illustrated in watercolors. It's gorgeous. The illustrator has several other books that focus, I think, kind of on like great feats in American history as told through the point of view of mice.
That's great.
Awesome.
Vashti, can I ask you a question about space? Would you ever want to go?
No.
Me neither.
No.
Me too.
Also, it costs so much money and so much waste. Don't waste it on me. Waste, you know, put someone who's really smart and let them go up there.
I'm terrified and I get motion sick. So there's no way I could function in that. Other people can
also going to the bathroom in space is absolutely miserable from everything I've read. They have not figured that out yet. So I'll wait.
Well, thank you.
I don't want to end on that. I'm so sorry.
I think yeah, we have no more questions, but yeah, was there anything, any last thing that either of you would like to say?
Thank you for coming and watching and participating. And again, thank you, Uncle Bobbie's and Little Brown, for making sure this all happened.
Yeah, it would have been really nice to do this in person, but I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do it this way, to have people visit from all over. And I'm just really excited for people to be able to hold the book in their hands.
Yeah, we're also super excited to have it on our shelves. I do believe we will be getting book plates too. So if for you lucky Philadelphians that would like to get a copy at the store, they will be signed. Thank you so much, Stephanie and Vashti. This was a really special treat. I'm so happy to, Uncle Bobbie's so happy to be a part of putting this book into the world or into the hands of more kids and families. Yeah, it was really a pleasure to have you both. It was such a gorgeous book and story. I think one of the cool things about maybe not wanting to go to space is that the dreaming of it is still something that is very meaningful for all of us.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Thanks again. And also thank you to Sydney Tillman for her help with everything. Thanks to our partners at Little Brown. And thanks to everyone that showed up. I hope that we get to have lots more of these fun author events. And I'm really excited. Wish you both congratulations on the release of this amazing book.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by.
Bye.
Bye.